Now, Erie's premier podcast. News about music, health, and what's happening. It's Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814. Sponsored by Erie Insurance.
Well, welcome to Labor Day weekend. This is when we honor and celebrate hardworking Americans like ourselves with one day of rest. Well, maybe you're spending this weekend at the beach or on your boat, spending time with family. Just remember to take time out and rest. Everyone deserves that. Podcast 43 is titled Curtains Up, Stories from the Stage. And I welcome to the show Executive Director of the Erie Playhouse, Zach Flock. Zach, you've been here before.
I have. This is my second appearance.
Thanks for coming back. And also Artistic Director Richard Davis. Richard, I am honored to have you on the show today.
I'm thrilled to be here today. Thank you.
It's awesome. Zach, you're no stranger to the podcast, so we just need to reflect a moment. And let's talk about your background.
Sure. So I've been at the Playhouse for just over a year as executive director. Thank you. Prior to that, spent most of my career in higher ed, but studied theater, got my master's in public administration, and when the Playhouse position opened up, it was kind of a dream role for me, and so I've been there just over a year, and I'm loving every day of it.
A master's in public administration. Where from?
From Gannon. From Gannon University, yep. I did both my undergrad and my master's at Gannon.
So, you were downstairs for a while, too. Tell us about that.
I was founding artistic director of Drama Shop in the Renaissance Center here. Did that for 11 years. That was a volunteer gig on top of my day job. So it's very nice now.
I know what that feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very nice to be working in theater in the field that I love so much at the Playhouse.
Well, we are certainly glad to have you. And I just got off the super high of the Newsies. That was just, and then we had a couple extra shows after that too.
We did, yeah, we did. It was selling so well that we decided to add on to another weekend of shows.
That was an over-the-top performance. And when I went during intermission to get a drink, it was a good drink.
Yes.
It was like I was like
we
super
sold a lot of those Newsies drinks during the run of the show.
We did. The King of New York was the signature drink.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And I certainly appreciate all your volunteers too. They do a fabulous job.
They do. We couldn't exist if they weren't part of us.
Absolutely. Kind of a foundation for the Erie Playhouse, definitely. So I'm excited to have you on, Richard. It's a first time here on the podcast. Now, Richard, you're no stranger to the theater scene, so we really need to go back with you.
Yeah, I've been part of the Erie theater scene for 45 years.
I was going to say
45 years this November.
My age, Zach. No,
the Wizard of
Mine
Oz. The Wizard of Oz at the Playhouse. I was an Emerald Citizen.
Were you?
I was, and Little Jack Horner. I stuck my thumb in a pie and pulled a plum out of it. So it was
and that's how it started 45 years ago.
That's how it started, and I've been there ever since.
Now, what stage was that on?
That was at McDowell. That was when the Playhouse was still performing at McDowell.
So let's go back to the history of the Playhouse, because it is is it the top 10 oldest playhouses in the country? It's
top 10, top 12, I think, depending on who you ask, what list you go by, but definitely one of the oldest,
yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. A continuous one, yeah.
So let's start from the very beginning. What year?
1916. Yep. 1916.
Predates us.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Who was directing back then?
That was Henry Vincent. He was the founder of the Playhouse, and really a big person in arts in general in Erie at that time. He was one of the conductors at Chautauqua, and the Playhouse actually would go to Chautauqua and perform there as well because of his ties with them.
Nice.
And in the 1920s, he was responsible for reorganizing the Philharmonic. So he's actually, really an important person to the art scene in Erie, a founding person.
I'm certainly going to have to read up on him because I did not know that.
And he was a composer. He played the organ. He played the organ at Chautauqua. That was one of his jobs there, and was a composer as well. And just had the vision for the Playhouse and the theater here. It started at the Reed House.
Was that on 6th?
That on, between 6th and 5th Street, right across from the museum. So when we had our 100th on the anniversary of the opening, we performed the 3 opening plays at the Art Museum. annex because it was so close to where the Reed House was.
So from the Reed House, where'd we go?
Then it was at the Brass Works, which was over on where the YMCA daycare is. The Brass Works was there between the YMCA and the Oddfellows Hall.
Okay.
And they were there for till about the late 20s. And during that time, Henry was very much wanted to have a playhouse of its own place. And so he really worked and raised money to build the theater, which was the one on 7th Street, which was the old Gannon.
I was going to say the Schuster Theater.
Yeah, the Schuster Theater.
I spent a lot of time on that stage at the Schuster Theater.
But it was the Playhouse before that.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it was built in 1929. I want to think they opened with Hedda Gabler was the opening show there. And then I was there until, I want to say the late 50s, 60s. They sort of outgrew the place, and then they were having some money problems. So they sold it to Gannon. And then they moved out to Wesleyville, and they were at the Wesleyville Theater, the old Penn Theater there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was a baby. When I moved to Erie, it was a baby furniture store because it's before my time.
What year?
Oh my gosh, that would have been in the 60s.
Did you? Okay.
They would have been in the 60s, and they were there until the early 70s. They were doing a production of The Women, and the lighting board caught fire.
I heard about this.
Yeah, and so Act 2 of that show never happened. And that's Charlie has the best story because it was his first day of work at the Playhouse, and he was driving to work, and he heard the Playhouse was on fire.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah, and then that's when they sort of became gypsies. The Playhouse became gypsies, and they would do 1 week at Fairview High School, and then take the show down, take it to Iroquois High School, reset it up, and do the second weekend at Iroquois High School.
Wow.
I'm so glad we don't do that.
Oh my God, I can't imagine.
No,
It's hard
no.
enough when you take it down just once at
Right.
the end of the show
Right.
and put it away. I can't imagine doing that. I'm glad it was before my time.
Well, I did not know that the Erie Playhouse was once in the Schuster. And,
Yeah.
and you know, I spent a lot of time in the Schuster, downstairs in the cubby holes,
Yeah, we have
smoking cigarettes. You know, that's what we were cool back then.
Right.
But I think it was pretty much haunted too.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure.
Seriously.
I'm sure.
Like,
I hope Mr. Vincent's found us. We're only a few blocks away, so I hope he's managed to find us. And he's not still down there.
so did we go from the different stages to the Strand then?
No, then we went to McDowell. And
Okay.
they were in McDowell, and that's when I joined the Playhouse. They started McDowell probably the year before I got there, which would have been 1978. And then we were at McDowell till 1983, and that's when they purchased the Strand and did the renovations.
Let's go back. Did you watch movies at the Strand like I
I
watched
did.
movies
I
at the
saw-
Strand? I was going to say. Like,
saw Halloween.
I don't think you, Zach, but I know
didn't.
I saw
Richard and I am.
Halloween there, and I saw the fog there. And when I saw the fog, we came out of the theater, and that dense fog had moved in that night.
boy.
It was so freaky.
So what year was that then?
1983. It opened with Annie on New Year's Eve, 1983.
And who was directing at that time? Was it?
It was David.
It, David was
Matthews
there.
then. Yeah. He joined the Playhouse in the early 70s, first as the business manager for a season, and then he became the managing director.
And how long was David? God rest his soul. He was around a long time, Richard.
Yeah, he retired in 2016. That's when Almy took over as executive director. So he was there a long time and really responsible for so many of us. We wouldn't be involved in theater if it wasn't for him.
Right. I saw.
Yeah, really, the Playhouse as we know it today is very much the Playhouse that David built in a lot of ways.
Love it. And I saw Almy last weekend, and she looked at me and she said, "How come you haven't been down to the Playhouse yet for a show?" I'm like, "Well, I've been there for a show. I just haven't been in a show." So we got some really exciting new news coming up here too. So one of the oldest theaters in the country. That is something to be extremely proud of.
It
Dave.
is. It is. Absolutely.
Yes. And the theater has evolved over the years. And what efforts have been made, guys, to like preserve the historical integrity of it? Is there anything?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I certainly think we're mindful of the legacy of those who have been there before us. Every day I walk down the stairs to my office and I walk past the portraits of Henry Vincent and
Sure.
Newell Tarrant and Almy and others. And it's just, knowing that legacy of the folks who've put in all this work for more than a century, there's a sense of responsibility, I think, that we all feel to keep the theater going. The building itself, having been in that space for 40 years now, we certainly want to
I
make
can't
sure
believe
that
it's
we're-
been.
Yeah,
Isn't
We
that
are
crazy?
showing our age, Richard.
Yeah.
You and me definitely are.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, just making sure that we're keeping that building as beautiful as we can and putting work into, modernizing it while preserving the integrity of the Strand and of the history of it. So, there's a lot. But I think for us, the big thing is to just make sure that the legacy of the Playhouse, the work that we do, is of the level of quality that folks have come
Right,
to expect
exactly.
for decades.
Absolutely. And the first time that I had you on, Zach, that was right before the Carole King musical.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was just,
Yeah.
what's her name again?
Kate Theme.
Kate.
Kate Theme,
Carol,
yeah.
yeah.
She's spectacular. And anything she does, she's wonderful. Yeah.
Wow. It threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
And Richard, I always tell Zach that I have 2 special seats up in the balcony over in the corner that I love for my husband and I, and we get them every time. And we are there. And I was back there singing the entire time.
Oh, I think most of the
You know what I mean?
audience
lot
Like,
of people were.
she was. So we're excited to hear about the brand new season. What themes, before we get into it, or stories are you focusing on for 24-25?
Richard, as artistic director, really kind of shapes the artistic product. So I'll let him talk about that. But I will say the theme for the season that actually Richard came up with is Soaring Tales and Epic Adventures.
Ooh.
Which is so, like, when he first shared that with a couple of us in a staff meeting, we were all like, yes, that's it. That's
Yeah,
it. I don't know what the shows are going to be yet, but that's awesome. That's,
Okay, I need to get behind the curtains with both of you and find out, how do we decide and what do we put together? And let's start from the beginning.
Sure. It's a process. It's a reading process a lot of times. And also it's first of all focusing on what we know is new coming down the road. What shows are going to, what tours. I usually look at, see what tours are ending soon. And then I'll be like, hey, to the licensing company, is this coming to us anytime soon? Or I also watch what other regional theaters, because even though we're a community theater, we're considered by licensing house to be more of a regional theater because of our budget that we have and the kind of work that we do. So I will watch what they're doing. And that's a couple of shows this season where I was like, hey, I see so-and-so's doing this. Is there any chance that we're going to be able to have that license? And they were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I'll just get an email saying, hey, you can license this show now. So that starts it. Plus, and then I look at what are some of the classic shows that we haven't done in a while. What I think is something that people will be excited to see, and also sometimes it's just something I really like.
That's what I'd love to hear, Richard.
Yeah.
Something for you too as well.
Yeah.
So I think about that. I think about you all sitting down and saying, now I love the theme. Then you look at budgetary concerns,
We
correct?
do, and we also have to look at the workload as well as for costumes and scenes, because we build all the costumes, we create all the scenery. So you have to all think about, okay, this show is going to be really big. Everyone's going to need to be working on this one. So on either side of that show, you have to try to put something a little easier, so that maybe the costumes will all be store-bought and we don't have to build them.
Right. Do you ever think of a talent that will wrap around a show that you want to perform on the stage? I don't want to.
Sometimes, and sometimes I know somebody's going to show up. Sometimes you're like, I hope somebody comes. And like when we did Jersey Boys, we were hoping we had a Frankie Valli, but
Yeah.
that's a special thing.
That is.
and no one came in the door, and he was spectacular.
Yeah.
It was. Saw that one too.
Yeah, but there's only one person that could fill those shoes, and so sometimes you're taking a chance, but that's
Well,
Yeah, and I
that's huge falsetto right there.
Right.
I mean, you've got to have somebody that's got falsetto down to a science.
And more than thinking of an individual performer that we know, okay, we have person X that's going to come out for this show, I think it's more looking at, we know this show is going to attract people. I think Waitress is a prime example
Yes.
of that, where
Right.
we knew there were a lot of people who were going to come out for the role of Jenna, and it's just a question of then who is the right fit for our production of it.
right.
So when you go to figure out who's directing, how does that work out too?
Because as artistic director, I actually get first choice. So
Richard, I'm seeing a theme here.
well,
Well, he's earned it.
You have
and
earned it,
you
Richard.
can't argue with success,
yeah,
right?
and
That's
so-
right, Zach.
So there's usually three shows a season that I'll direct, and then everybody on staff at the Playhouse is a director, just about. So then I will try to divvy it out a little bit so that everyone has a chance every so often to direct a show. And then we reach outside sometimes, like an Almi Clerkin directed Guys and Dolls for us. So we like to bring those past directors also in and we give them an opportunity at times.
Joel Natali was fabulous, by
He
the
was
way.
wonderful.
Absolutely. In his
It was
first
so
Playhouse
nice.
show, too.
And I know because, Joel and I did theater back in the Gannon University days.
Right.
And I haven't seen Joel. I was thrown. It was perfect. It was a perfect fit for
Yeah, he's
him.
wonderful.
I love to see people that I did theater with in college, end up on your stage. And I'm just like, wow.
Well, and I think that's a great thing of having
A community
theater
theater.
programs in town is that
Right.
they feed into a community theater
Yeah.
like ours, and also people who don't have any theater training, but they're doctors, lawyers, whatever for a living, and then they come into a show and you're like, wow, I had no idea they could do that, and
Yeah.
it's
Right.
really exciting.
And sometimes they had no idea they could do that.
Oftentimes.
Richard, I'm always looking in the program to see who's who. And of course, the Newsies, I studied that because as being on the radio too, I had to make sure that everybody knew that you had a couple extra performances in there. And if they don't get there, shame on them.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at that show. That was fabulous. So let's talk about the orchestra, musicians. Is Griff still playing some drums
He's
for
still
you?
down there. Yep.
Absolutely.
Love it.
He's in his 400 and something show
I was
now.
going to say,
Yeah.
we really need to have a party for
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Jim Griffey.
We do. We
He's
totally
fabulous.
do. He is.
So when you're working on the music, is there certain people that you are that are your go-tos? And I'm sure Jim is one of them.
Oh, absolutely. That we have a solid core of people that like to play show after show. So we usually give them first dibs, and then we're always looking for new talent. Sometimes they can't play shows or they're playing because they all play at other theaters. They all play every high school show. They play down in Meadville sometimes at the Academy. So they're really busy playing, and so sometimes we have new people that come in, or sometimes they'll share a part. If someone can't do the whole run, so you find someone else to fill in for them when they can.
And
do
that always really impresses me too, the ability for a musician in the pit to sub in for a show or for a weekend and to just jump right in and know exactly what to do.
I got to
It's
tell you a funny
better them than me.
Yes, I got a funny story about the pit because I think I played the guitar in Runaways, and Jim was on that was done at Gannon or whatever. But there was somebody behind me during the Newsies that said, "Where is that music coming from?" And I had to giggle because it's like you cannot see them.
No, you can't. and they're so good.
And yes.
You feel so many times we'll have our first cast and orchestra coming together, and the orchestra plays, and you're like, oh my God, they sound like the recording, and it's their first time playing the music.
Yeah.
So
I
we
know.
are so blessed to have such gifted musicians that volunteer their time
And
at the Playhouse.
it just makes me giggle. I go, they're there.
They're there for
I
sure.
know you can't see them, but they
I
really
know.
are there.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Some people miss that now that we put them underground. But they actually like it in a way because they don't have to hold their sound back. They can play. Jim can bang on those drums all he wants to. He doesn't have to pull back because they're not in the room, so the sound isn't as live as it used to be.
Yes. So, are there any original productions being premiered for the new season?
No,
No?
nothing original. But there are a lot of first times. That, we're going to be one of the first community theaters, to do a lot of these shows this season.
Outstanding. So, the new season, are we balancing it between like classic productions and contemporary works?
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a balance of that. You want to bring in things that people know, because it really is something that people tend to go to things they know. They may not have seen that as a musical before, but they know, they knew Frankie Valli's music, so they'll come see Jersey Boys, even though they may have never heard of Jersey Boys. But I don't know who wouldn't have heard of Jersey Boys by now, but but that does play into it sometimes.
Sure.
And so you want to things that people know, and then sometimes we'll do something that's for art. That we think it's a wonderful show, and we need to do it like Next to Normal would be an example. We know it's not going to sell a lot of tickets, but it's a beautiful piece of theater that we feel like we need to do.
I love that too. Having some stage representation for some things that most people wouldn't go out for,
Right.
but there are your classic theater people like myself that would come out and see the show. For
Well,
sure.
and that's a really important part of what we do is those individuals who are willing to come to every show because it's a Playhouse show, whether they have familiarity with it or not. You know, I'm thinking of our season ticket holders who make that commitment to see all 7 main stage shows in the course of a season. Maybe 5 or 6 of those shows are on their list of, yes, I must see this. And there might be 1 or 2 that they're maybe not sure of or not as familiar with. But by buying a season ticket, they come and see that additional show and usually leave going, oh, that was great. I didn't know what to expect, but I loved it.
Zach and Richard, the marquee is absolutely beautiful. Let's
Thank you.
talk.
And thanks to Mary Lincoln and Lincoln Recycling while we're on
Was
the
that what-
subject of the marquee.
Yes.
Lincoln Recycling.
Yes, absolutely. We had some
Talk about how you that whole story, because I know that. What did you end up going to lunch, or how did this all come together to get this marquee up to? I mean, it is the most one. Well, besides the Warner, of course, and that's historical as well. But you're not far behind.
Yeah, I mean the short story is that it stopped working, right? That we had technology that was put in about a decade or so ago to update the marquee display. And over time, you know, equipment breaks and unfortunately technology becomes obsolete. So we were in a situation where in order to get the marquee looking beautiful again, we had to completely replace the video screens in it. And that was not inexpensive. And so we looked to community support. We had some grants. The Redevelopment Authority provided some support for that. And then Lincoln Recycling, Mary Lincoln agreed to help us fund the rest of that project and take it the rest of the way. So we were really excited that we were able to get it back to, not just back to its former glory,
but even better.
with even better technology.
Yes,
now.
I
So,
can see it from a mile away, gentlemen. I can
That's the
see
goal.
it from a mile away. You know, that's really great. It looks wonderful. Is there any part of the theater that you may be doing a capital campaign down the road to try and...
I mean, there's
Do
the
s-
building
There's
is 75 plus years old, so there's always work
Something.
to be done. Yeah, right now we've put some dollars into replacing carpeting in the theater itself. We would love to do the dressing rooms and other areas of the building as well, where there's some carpeting and other repairs that definitely need to be done as well.
And last year was the year of the doors. All of our
Yes.
doors died.
Yeah,
Which is so weird, but like
All at the same time.
yeah, like the door frames were from the 40s, and they had rusted out, and suddenly one of the doors was like, totally sideways.
Yeah, and those are the emergency exits and fire doors out of the space. So obviously we're not needed to replace those right away. You don't wait
Right.
to replace something like that when it goes bad. So.
Yeah.
Well, I was thrilled because right at the beginning before Newsy started, of course, you get a little video clip of you, Zach, and you were talking about, make sure to give for the Erie Gives campaign. How did it go?
It went well. We don't have our final numbers yet, but the good side of that is that the number keeps kind of slowly ticking up a little bit more.
Good.
So we're about right on par with last year. We don't know yet what the matching funds will be. So we find out, I think, September 17th is when we get the official final total from the Community Foundation. But it was a great day. We had more individual donors than last year. I think last year we
That's a
had
good
about
thing.
250. This year we're over 300 individual donors. So that's a great sign. And of course, we're really grateful to all those individuals who were able to make those contributions through Erie Gives.
Because the arts are important.
They are.
And, now I see, like with elementary schools and middle schools and high schools, they don't even have bands, they don't have productions, they don't have music. There's so much that it's been taken away, and especially since the pandemic. What are your thoughts on that, Richard?
Well, I think in many ways, we're lucky in Erie that we have a lot of Playhouse alumni or Playhouse family members that teach school. So they tend to have theater programs in their schools, but almost all of them are Playhouse people.
Yeah.
So they've learned at the Playhouse, and then they've taken back to their school and have done it there as well.
Well, I love the youth theater, and there's classes and all kinds of stuff. Fill us in so these parents
Absolutely.
can bring the kids down so we can get them started early.
Right. We'll have another session of youth theater classes starting up in September. So we are not quite to the deadline to sign up for those, but it's coming up close. But we have so many different opportunities. We have acting classes, music classes, dance classes. We also have something called Saturday Storytellers, which is for younger kids. And it's really just a chance to kind of explore storytelling and play games and kind of have a more kind of laid back vibe. So that happens as well. But all of our class information is on our website. Really, if there's an area of theater you're interested in doing, there's something that we offer. And in fact, this fall we'll have some one-day workshops as well, some makeup and that kind of stuff, hands-on. And actually, those are open for all ages, not just kids. So that's a great opportunity. I think we also have some stage combat workshops, all kinds of neat things going on.
Well, I think once you bring them in and they start hanging out on the stage.
Yeah.
And then they start hanging around longer. And then next thing you know, they're auditioning for something.
Yes, we absolutely tend to see that. And we had great turnout for our summer camps this year. So we're hoping.
I was going to say, how was summer camp? Is it always at the Playhouse?
No.
Or do you go over to 12th Street?
We have it off-site. Actually, the past couple years, it's been at OLP. So that way we're able to kind of break off and have different classes going on at the same time. Otherwise, if we try to do that in our space, it gets a little chaotic.
I know that you have a rehearsal space too.
Yes, out on East 12th.
East 12th Street. Do you use that for all productions or?
Yeah.
Do you?
It's a very busy place. So right now it's got 3 productions rehearsing in it. So because Shawshank rehearsals there, we just started Sweeney Todd last night, and yesterday they just started Tuck Everlasting. So every rehearsal room is being used and for from after school into the evening.
And that's also where we have our scene shop and our costume shop as well. So
somebody that might want to be behind the scenes, like I took makeuping and costuming and that, and I learned how to sew, I guess, during that. But if somebody
reach
is
out
interested,
and we'll put you to work.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll find a spot for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a lot of backstage things that people can do, running spotlights and just being on stage crew. Someone's got to move the scenery around. It's nice when you have enough stage crew people that the actors don't have to do that, so they can just focus on what they need to do.
Yeah. Can you share, gentlemen, any behind-the-scenes insights about the preparation of the new season? Did we make the decision right off the bat on this new season, or was there some back and forth about different?
Not too much.
No?
I really, sort of put the list together and then share it with the staff, and then they have their input, whether they think it's a go or not. And everyone thought it was a good idea. Yeah. We just went with it.
Good. Does the board get involved in that as well?
The board approves our slate. They really don't get too kind of, in the weeds. They might have a few questions about, is that going to be an expensive show or something like
exactly,
that? But generally speaking, I mean, they understand that Richard's role as artistic director and mine as executive director is to look at a slate, and Richard's looking at it from an artistic standpoint and also considering how he thinks it might do in terms of ticket sales. And then I'm asking, okay, but can we afford to do it? Those types of things. But we collaborate together, and by the time it gets to the board, hopefully all of those kind of details have been worked out, and we're good to go.
Soaring Tales and Epic Adventures. Let's start to talk about the new season because I'm very excited about it.
We are too.
All right, number 1.
So we start off with Waitress. That was one that we actually announced early a few months ago because Richard, you have more background here.
We got the email that said, "Hey, you can do this. You can have Waitress in a very short window. It's actually available for a very limited time."
I wondered about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
because the tour ended, but it's going to be. I don't know if it's going out on tour, or if it's going back to Broadway. It's been back to Broadway off and on, for the last 10 years.
Oh yeah,
because it's such a popular show. So we have this very limited window, and we've decided we better announce it right away, just so that no one else would scoop it up. So.
That's the other thing too. It's just like then you got to look around you and make sure that it's a fit for you and that nobody else is taking it from you. Very good. Waitress, January 24th through February 9th. Yep. And then it looks like we go into a youth theater
show. With Pete the Cat. It's a very popular children's book. And again, another brand new musical that I sort of reached out to the company and was like, hey, what's the story on Pete the Cat? Is there any chance we can do it? And they're like, well, it's out on tour, but let me contact the producers and see. And then they were like, yep, you can have Pete the Cat.
I see Pete the Cat's got a guitar in his hands, which is a very good start, and looks like a pair of Converse sneakers.
He does.
That's right.
So that's going to be...
And he drives a Volkswagen bus.
Yeah.
He's all down my alley.
He's a party animal.
He's a cool cat, as they say.
I love it. All right, next on the bill.
And this is probably the show I'm most excited about this season, and that's The Prince of Egypt, DreamWorks Prince of Egypt, the story of Moses and the conflict with Moses and Ramses, and basically his life, being put in the basket and going down the Nile until he, leads the Hebrew people out of bondage.
And you know what? I think this is around Lent and Easter.
It is, yep.
It is. We did
Perfect,
that on purpose.
perfect timing,
Yeah.
Richard.
Yeah, and a beautiful score by Stephen Schwartz, who wrote Wicked. Just really, the music is soaring at it. After our launch party, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I really want to see Prince of Egypt because the music is so good."
Okay, I'm circling them up as I speak. How about, and then the next thing, we go into another youth theater production.
Phantom Tollbooth Jr. If you know the book, you certainly know this story. But another great youth theater production. I should mention Annika Lexvold is our youth theater director. She started in August of last year. And so this was the first, when she came last year, the season was already announced and up and running. So this was the first season that she had a hand in kind of working with Richard and making some suggestions as well.
Good. And then, bum-ba-da-dum. This is a biggie.
Yeah, the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
This is big.
We're super excited. We're super excited and a little scared.
But you know what? Being scared brings out a great performance.
It does. It has a lot of demands visually because it's sort of a multimedia kind of show. So there's a lot of projections, and the projections need to interact with the actors. So it's going to be very challenging in that way, technically. But had a very successful tour in the UK, and then just recently had its premiere in America at the Algonquin Playhouse, which is one of the best regional theaters in the country. And so we're one of the few theaters doing it. Actually, we're doing it, and the community theater in Harrisburg are doing it. We're opening about the same time, which is kind of weird.
Really?
Yeah.
And then next on the bill.
An oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cats.
I love it. I love it. Record breaking. That's what it says. Record breaking.
Yeah.
Cats.
It's a big show, and it's been
Since the last time we did it was
15 years?
2008.
I was going to
last time
say
we
that.
did it.
I think you did it in the past.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
my wife was a cat that time around, and she wasn't my wife yet. So.
Yeah. I was a cat.
Well, she
too.
turned you a
I
cat
won't be a
'cause she
cat
got
this
you.
time, but I
That's
was a
right. You
cat.
were director and cat.
I was director and cat because McCavity dropped out of the show, and then I was like, oh, I don't have anybody else to play McCavity. I guess I'll do it. So I was only on briefly. So that's the only way I was willing to put on spandex at my age.
Richard, how many times have you had to step into a performance? Talk to
only
me.
a couple times. Actually, the biggest time would have been when we did Sweeney Todd the last time. The judge went down the chute and got hurt. He didn't have. His knees were bothering him, and he went down the chute the first time, and that he was done. He couldn't.
Now, were you around for Monsignor McSweeney's Sweeney Todd? Did he do that?
No,
No, Tom didn't do that. I
No,
was
he
trying
didn't
to think.
do that one.
I think Man of La Mancha is the
That's-
one that
yeah, that's
he's
it.
kind of
Yeah.
known for, right?
Yeah, that's his big one.
Good call there.
Yeah.
And then next in September.
And everybody's favorite music. I don't know anybody that doesn't like My Fair Lady. Just enchanting and lovely and lavish. It's going to be a great time.
And that's one that, to me, when you think Erie Playhouse, that's just a playhouse show in every great sense of the word.
And the costumes.
And the
Yes.
costumes
Yeah.
are to die for. Yeah.
I mean, we're not in spandex for this.
no, we're not.
Definitely
we're not. There's going to be a lot of fabric. Though.
Yes, a lot of fabric. And then in October, interesting, bringing us right up to Halloween.
The Elephant Man. It's really been a long time since we've done the show at the Playhouse. It was back in I want to say the late 90s. I think the last time we did it with David Matthews directed it. Lon Jenkins played.
Lon
Merritt.
Jenkins, that brings back memories.
Yeah. And Scott McClellan played the doctor in that as well. It was a great cast, but it just seemed like a timely show that it was time for it to come back.
It's just a great play.
And a
really
great play.
well-written, solid play.
So then we end with Emma.
Well, we
Or do
don't
we-
quite end with Emma, but the next one up is Emma.
Okay.
That'll be, it's actually Emma Jr. It's a great youth theater show. It's a jukebox musical, so a lot of songs that you hear on the radio telling the story of the book.
Yeah, Jane Austen's
Jane
Emma.
Austen's Emma.
So,
okay.
and it's all pop girl music. So either pop girl pop girl groups, or like Katy Perry and Cyndi Lauper, all
Nice.
that kind of music. And it's really clever how they've integrated the music to tell the story.
Well, we're talking about the LECOM stage at the Erie Playhouse. I've got an executive director, Zach Flock, along with the artistic director, Richard Davis. Richard, thank you for coming on. Zach's been here before. And when I went in to get my tickets for Newsies, he looked at me and goes, "Hey, we're getting set for the new season." And you know what?
Have us on the show.
I really, yes. And I really was like, oh, I'm really excited to be able to share this with listeners. This is fabulous. And then, I know that you always do a great holiday show.
Right.
So let's talk about, because that's a special time of year.
Yeah. Well, and I wish we could talk more about it.
But we can't.
So Richard can tell you why we can't.
I can tell you that it is a really big show, but it's a show that's just going to become available to us. It's still out on tour,
So it's coming soon.
It's coming soon. But they were supposed to give us the contract. We have to have the contracts. We have to have paid money to the licensing company before we can announce the show. And they were like, "You'll have the contract this summer." And then I was like, "Hey, it's summertime. Is the contract coming soon?"
Was it the holiday show last year, Richard, that you spoke? It was really unique. I don't know. It was at the anniversary.
That
What
would
did
have
we-
been probably
what were
New
we
Year's
doing?
Eve.
New
Yeah, New
Year's
Year's
Eve.
Eve.
Yes,
Yeah,
New
when
Year's
we celebrated
Eve.
the 40th anniversary of being in the Strand.
Yeah.
I loved it. And you
Yeah.
got up there and you spoke, and it was just, boy, Richard, you're part of the brick and mortar.
I know that's kind of strange when you think about it. If you would have told me that 40 years ago, and this kid came that didn't know the singing chorus from the dancing chorus. I remember my first rehearsal, and they said, "Okay, we're going to turn you over to the choreographer, Charlie." And I was like, "Choreographer? I'm in the singing chorus. I have to dance." And I didn't know my right foot from my left foot. And I remember that one of my first notes, David Matthews looked at me and said, "And you didn't smile one time."
I think that was one of my first notes from David too.
I smiled every day.
smiling.
I smiled really big after that.
Yeah,
let me tell you. So if you would have told that kid that someday he'd be the artistic director of the Playhouse, and he would have told you you're nuts. It's never going to happen. So
let's talk about people that want to audition for all these plays in the new season. How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so we do have open auditions for all of our shows. So we've not yet announced dates for those just yet. but-
Okay. Do you actually, like they used to do at the Schuster Theater when I was there, where you put up it on the doors so people can come to the theater and look on the doors?
we
or
still
you?
do that. Most people. We also put it up online, and that's where most people do it. But for the
I remember those days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
one of the people that got cast the last round, he did a picture of him at the Playhouse window with the cast list, and I told him he was old schooling it.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Oh, that was we would all stay together. We'd all go out and have a drink or go to Plymouth after auditions
Yes.
and wait till the thing would
2, 3 o'clock in the morning, running over
we'd
there.
go up and everybody come running out to take a look at the list.
I get it. And back in the day, when we had the showcase, which was a great piece for theater and such, we'd be sitting up all night long waiting for the showcase to come out to
reviews.
see the review.
I did that many a night. I'd be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning getting in my car, driving over to the newspaper thing to see if the papers were out. yet.
Right on. I can remember the last show that I did was, do patent leather shoes really reflect up? And, it's like we were all like jazzed about seeing what they said in the showcase, which was really nice.
Yeah, by
and
the
they said
time
that
I was-
Natalie Massing shines in all directions. So it was just one.
nice.
It was one sentence, but it made me feel so good.
Yeah, I was going to say by the time I was at Gannon and at the Playhouse, it was online. They had Go Erie, but we would be up refreshing the page. Is it posted yet? Is it posted yet? Waiting for that review, which was probably a little easier than having to drive to get the paper, but still stressful nonetheless.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. So we're waiting on the Christmas show. Will we do another New Year's Eve production? What do you think?
At this point, not. Probably not.
Okay.
I was thinking about it a little bit today, but I'm not 100% sure yet. But we're probably going to be running the Christmas show a little bit after New Year's Eve. We'll be doing it this year definitely with Beauty and the Beast, probably. We'll run the weekend after Christmas.
Okay.
Just because we're expecting the show to be super popular. And actually that weekend after Christmas, time we do a show, it sells really well because people just need to get their family out of the house.
Can't imagine why, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I get it.
And definitely this show that's going to be coming next holiday season, which is such a big, giant show and a big family show, it definitely will be probably running after Christmas as well.
Well, I always wanted to know, can we rent your theater out? How does that work?
On rare occasions,
Okay.
you can rent the theater out. We're in there almost all the time. If we're not rehearsing a show, if we're not doing the show, performing it, we're rehearsing it. So that we're in there building sets, or we're taking sets down, or But there are small windows where
Like Tennessee Back Porch.
Tennessee Back Porch.
That was a great show.
Yeah, that was a great show. And Gannon has been coming in the last few years with their multicultural dance event. So we can fit them in. Last year we had Alaska come in, and they rented the
I
theater.
missed the show,
Oh, it
but
was
of
great.
course I Googled up everything because I needed to know, because you were in right before Alaska came
Right.
last year,
Yeah.
and I was like, I need to know all about this, and I really wanted to go, but I already had something planned. But I heard it was a
It
knockout.
was-
We
It
added
crazy.
a second show.
I
right?
know
yeah,
you did.
Yeah,
so
it was a long
popular.
day for us,
long
and
day
we
for
weren't
us.
performing. So, yeah.
Well, you
But
know,
no, it is rare, like Richard said, that we have a weekend where there's nothing going on at the
Yeah.
Playhouse that we
Sure.
can open it up to others. But
Sometimes we'll squeeze it in. Like this October 5th, we have Witch Perfect coming in. It's just a touring show with features 3 drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race, and doing a Hocus Pocus themed event.
yeah,
So, and there's only like 100 seats left for that. So if anybody wants to go, they may need to go onto our website and get the link to get
I
tickets.
love the name Hocus Pocus. That's great. So, any future plans for the theater in terms of renovation or expansion or anything like that at the moment?
I think right now we're really just making sure that we are doing what we do well. That there's such, as we talked about at the beginning, there's such a rich tradition at the Playhouse. And, coming out of the pandemic, it's been a rough couple of years. Audiences are just kind of getting back to normal behavior. And so, we're really just trying to do what we can to solidify things at the Playhouse and make sure we're in good shape.
Yeah, when the pandemic hit, I was living in Stanton, Virginia, and they have the Shakespeare Theater there. Have you ever been?
No.
Oh, it's an exact replica.
Oh, wow.
And it's downtown. Stanton's like a little, I want to call it like a little San Francisco because it's really hilly because of the Blue Ridge and that. But they do a fantastic job. And then when the pandemic hit, everybody was really concerned. But they turn around and their people came forward, and we all gave money, and they went online and they kept doing what they were doing, and you could pop on and see the show. But an exact replica with no microphones or anything of that nature. It just, it's beautiful. Look it up.
Yeah.
It's a Shakespeare Theater out of Stanton, Virginia. Just fabulous works. So are there any long-term goals for programming or outreach efforts as we speak?
I would say there are always sort of those things that kind of percolate in the back of your mind that
Absolutely.
what could be. But really, I think we're kind of laser focused on just making sure that we are recovering from COVID and
doing
getting the Playhouse on solid footing, which it really is, and audiences are coming back. And that's
Zach?
great to see. The excitement is there.
I
so-
just want to say you're a perfect fit
Oh, thank
He
you.
for
is
the
a perfect
Playhouse.
fit. He is a
We're
perfect
happy to have you. Richard, so happy that you're continuing to do the great work that you do for the Playhouse. So we're going to run these by again. Starting in January, we got Waitress, Pete the Cat, The Prince of Egypt, The Phantom.
Phantom Tollbooth Jr.
My reading glasses are really taking
Yeah,
a
it's small
toll.
print on our.
The Da Vinci Code, the Cats, of course, My Fair Lady, The Elephant Man, Emma Jr., and then we're waiting to hear.
Yeah,
Can
we'll
you
have
let
to
me
come
know?
back for that.
You're gonna have to come back and let me know. But I do. It's so great to have both of you and all the people that are involved in your organization doing the work that they're doing. if anybody wants to volunteer, do they just go to your website and
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
EriePlayhouse.org. And then our staff is all listed on there as well. So if there's a specific area that you're interested in and you want to reach out to the staffer in that area, you can certainly do that.
And we're looking for front of house people to be ushers or work
Yeah.
the concession stands. So we have volunteers that way. And actually, if you do that, you get to see the show for free.
I know that's a big deal.
Best deal in town.
That is definitely a big deal. Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
For coming on Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814. I have a fabulous new season. I'm looking forward to seeing most of them.
Yeah.
Some of my absolute favorites. And I'm going to close the show today with a quote from one of my favorite gals, and that is Julie Andrews. Julie says, "The arts make a bridge across this world in ways that nothing else can." And that's exactly what you're doing down here on 10th and State. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Have a blessed week, everybody, in the 814.
You've been tuned in to Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814, sponsored by Erie Insurance on 88.5 and 102.7 LECOM Radio.